Lab number 257. In this lab we continue development of our hybrid messenger application, and right now we'll start working on the tab that will be called Schedule tab. So it will display today's delivery scheduling, and basically in order to display it we will communicate with the Cloudant database that will be hosted on Bluemix. So first of all we will start with opening the Bluemix console. You need already to have an account there. In case you don't have an account, please register. So then you will be able to log in. And once you logged in, we need to go to Catalog and select from there Cloudant. You can use search on the top, it will be faster. So just create the Cloudant database service. You don't need to bound it to any application or enter any settings here. Just click create and wait until it will finish. Okay, so now what we actually need to do is to make our browser window a bit bigger and launch the Cloudant database console. So from here we will create our first database. Let's call it schedule. Just like that, and we will also create our first document. So we'll pretend that this will be a document specifically for this user with his today's schedule. And what you need to do here is basically to pass the code from snippet. You can find the link in description. This is snippet 1 JSON, actually contents of this delivery information. So just like that. Then you can click save. And basically here we go. Here is our document that we can already call to get this input with delivery information. So inside we have the ID, basically the address where to deliver, then the time. Time means that 1 hour from this time, so like 9 means delivery from 9 to 10, 10 means delivery from 10 to 11, and so on. Package ID, we won't be using it for now. Name of the receiver of that package and his phone number. So as simple as that. Next step for us will be to go to terminal and create our adapter for working with Cloudant. So the code will look like MFP def adapter create, not the code of course, but the command. And just then enter something like Cloudant adapter. It will be HTTP adapter, and the group for Maven project will be something like com hybrid. So now when we created our adapter, we can go back to our editor and we should be able to see Cloudant adapter folder created there, and always the same structure. So adapter XML, this is what we will start with. So first of all, we will have here procedure. Let's call it something like get schedule. And we will secure it with the same scope as we used in previous labs, so restricted data. That is already mapped on required security check for username and login. So next thing that we need to define here is the authentication for working with Cloudant. So this is the part of connectivity policy. So we should define this authentication right inside. Then we need to specify that this will be a basic one, meaning that we will only use the username and the password. And since from this moment we can actually specify a username and the password, it should be done inside server identity. Just like that. So here we should have the username, basically, and also password. And just like that. So of course, in order to fill this username and the password, we need to get credentials from Cloudant. So for that, let's go back to our dashboard and click on service credentials. So here we go. This is our username. We can just copy it and pass inside the username. Then the same should be done for a password. Like here. We also need to fix the domain. So domain is listed here as host. Just like that. So now we can save this adapter XML and go to JS file, Cloudant adapter impl.js, to proceed with implementation of that service call to Cloudant, I mean. So we declared there something called get shadow. So we also need to declare it here. We won't have any input parameters for now. We will simplify as much as possible the way how we will work with the Cloudant, just to speed up the process and cut time needed for such development. So returned content type will be JSON, and the path that we will be calling will consist of basically a name of our database. So it should be shadow, as we call it, and then we need to provide the ID of the document that we will try to call. So in our case, this is the ID. Like that. So now we can save this Cloudant adapter and proceed with build and deploy. Yeah, of course, we need to get inside that folder. So now we can do deployment. And open our operational console. And we should be able to see here Cloudant adapter. Yep. So under resources, you should be able to see this get shadow. And we should be also able to see the Swagger docs, and from here we can try to call it. So in order to call it, we need actually to authenticate ourselves, because as you remember, we secured this call with restricted data scope. So in order to authenticate, just click this button, select the scope that you want to authenticate, and then we will be using the test client. So test client specified in the console, and by default we have test and again test as the password, and we will get authenticated. So now we can try out this call to see if we will get a response. And yes, as you can see, we got a response, and basically inside we have our delivery shadow, so as we expected. So now it's time to call this from our application. So for that, first of all, we will need to generate one more service. So let's call it something like shadow service. just like that. And just the same as we did in previous situations, we will need to open that service. It will be inside provider. Sometimes Visual Code do not update the folder right away, so we can try to relaunch it, for example. Okay, so we have our service here. So as you remember, it's always by default with JS extension, so we need to rename it as we did before to TS. Then we need to remove the HTTP part, we don't need it. We'll define data variable with type any, just like that. And then we can actually take the code from employee service, because we did here almost the same, so we can copy all the load from here and replace what we currently have for load in this shadow service. So now we need to rename it for console login to shadow service. Then we need to change the URL for adapter. So as you remember, it's called Cloudant adapter, and then the function called getShadow. Just like that. Let me enable the word wrap. Just like that, and basically everything else remains the same. So now we can save this shadow service TS file, and next thing we need to import it inside app.ts. So just the same way as we did, for example, for storage service. Like that, and then to add it as one of the providers. Okay, so now we can save this app.ts file. Next step for us to work with page 3. So let's open the TS file and start with the just logging, so we know when it will be in it. Something like page 3 init will be enough. And here we can call something like load shadow function that we will define in a second. Now from here we need to call this service, so first we will start with importing it. Just like that, and then we need to add a reference to it, so something like shadow. Let's also define a variable here. Like that. And now here we can call this shadow service. So we need some kind of callback. Let's call what we will return back, something like results. And then we need to do something with results. So first of all, let's do a login. Just like shadow loaded, and then providing the results. And then we can assign those results to some kind of variable. Let's call it something like delivery. And we need to define it. Again, type will be any. One more thing that we need to do is to ensure that this mapping will work properly. So let's take a look again on our service. So instead of response JSON results, we should probably have something like, yeah, delivery to do the proper mapping. Like that. And let's also change tab configuration. So we will see this page as first one. So I will just replace tab 1 route to page 1. And then tab 3 route to page 3, it will change the places between those two pages. So now after I save it, I can wait until live reload will finish. So let me enter the correct username and the password. Cool, so we loaded the shadow. There is some issue with login and after response, so I need to fix that. And our shadow looks as expected. Great. So let's fix our logging. Yep, this should be in delivery. And because we know that it's working, we can remove login from here. We actually don't need it. And next step will be to also display this data inside our HTML. So for that, we will work with page 3 HTML. And let's start with change the title, something like today's shadow, just like that. And then we can continue with some kind of list with that shadow. So the same as we were doing it before, we will be using Ionic list. And basically, what we can do inside for now is just to have ion item, which will be repeated with ng4, and let's have a reference as an item for a specific item, and repetition will be happening of this delivery variable that we just created. And basically, what we will display inside this ion item. Let me close this tag. So let me just display with h2 tag something like address. And on the second line that we can specify with p, we can display something like name. So this will be a name of the person whom will deliver this. It will be enough for now. So let's save it and wait until our live reload will finish loading. Okay, cool. So now we have a list. On this step, our lab number 257 is finished, and we will continue development in future labs. Thank you.